The whisper in the cabin. The year was 1879, and the sun bled red over the plains of Wyoming. A lonely ranch stood miles from the nearest town, its fence broken in places, its barn roof patched with old tin sheets. It belonged to Ethan Cole, a rancher hardened by drought, cattle raids, and the silence of the frontier. He had buried his wife 3 winters ago, and since then, he lived alone with nothing but the wind and the coyotes for company. That night, the prairie carried a storm. Clouds rolled heavy, and lightning snapped like a whip across the sky. Ethan saddled his horse, Duke, to check the northern pasture before the rain came down. As he rode across the empty fields, he spotted something strange near the edge of his land. A lantern glowing faintly inside the old abandoned trapper's cabin that had been empty for decades. Ethan frowned. Nobody in their right mind used that place. Folks in town whispered it was cursed. Some said a trapper had been murdered there, others that his daughter had vanished, leaving only blood on the floorboards. Ethan, a man not quick to believe in ghost tales, gripped the handle of his Colt and nudged Duke toward the cabin. The door creaked when he pushed it open. Inside, the lantern glowed on a crooked table. Dust lay thick, except for the center, where a square object was hidden beneath a piece of rough brown cloth. The air smelled of rot and damp earth. And then he heard it. A whisper. Soft. Feminine. Remove the cloth. Ethan froze. His heart kicked like a mule in his chest. He spun around, expecting someone behind him, but the cabin was empty. Only the shadows danced against the walls. He swallowed. Who's there? No answer. Just the whisper again, closer this time. Remove the cloth? The voice came from nowhere and everywhere, weaving through the storm winds outside. Ethan's hand shook. He wanted to leave, to slam the door and ride back, but something kept him there. Something heavy, pulling at his gut. Slowly, he reached for the cloth. His fingers brushed it, rough with dust and mold. The lantern flame sputtered, as if warning him. He hesitated, sweat sliding down his temple. And then, with one swift motion, he yanked it off. What he saw beneath made his blood turn to ice. It wasn't gold. It wasn't silver. It wasn't anything earthly. On the table sat a mirror, its frame carved with symbols he didn't recognize. But the reflection, it wasn't his own. Instead of Ethan Cole, the glass showed the face of a woman. Pale skin, long, tangled black hair, eyes hollow like 2 wells. Her lips moved silently, yet he heard her voice clearly inside his head. You found me. Ethan staggered back, knocking the lantern over. Darkness swallowed the room except for the faint glow of the mirror itself. He tried to tear his gaze away, but his muscles locked as though the woman's stare had rooted him to the floor. The storm outside roared, rain hammering against the rotten boards. The woman's hand pressed against the inside of the glass. And then she began to step out. The woman in the glass. Ethan's breath came ragged as the pale woman pressed against the inside of the mirror. For one dreadful moment, he thought it was only an illusion, a trick of stormlight. But then her hand slid through the glass like it was water, dripping cold mist onto the table. No, he whispered, stumbling backward. You ain't real. Her body followed. First her arm, then her shoulders, and finally her whole figure slipped free of the mirror, leaving the frame empty and black. She stood barefoot on the warped boards, her night dress clinging as though soaked in some unseen river. You came, she whispered, her voice the same as before. You heard me. Ethan's instinct screamed to draw his Colt, but his hand wouldn't move. It was as though her presence held him in place. Who are you? He croaked. The woman tilted her head. Once I was Clara, the trapper's daughter. Do you remember what they did to me? Ethan shook his head, throat tight. He had heard the stories, but only in hushed tones. A girl gone missing. A father found dead, throat cut. No one had ever discovered the truth. Her eyes glowed faintly, catching the lantern's dying flame. They bound me. They covered me. And they left me here, hidden beneath the cloth, waiting. The storm rattled the cabin. Wind howled through cracks, carrying her words like a hymn of the dead. Ethan finally broke free of the spell enough to stagger to the door. But when he yanked it open, the prairie was gone. Instead, he saw endless black fields, dotted with ghostly figures watching from afar. Their faces blurred, but he felt their eyes. "You can't leave," Clara whispered behind him. "Not until you take my place." Ethan spun, gun finally in his hand. "Stay back." The pale woman only smiled, sad and hollow. "It always needs another." She lifted her hands, and the mirror behind her began to glow again. Its surface rippled, pulling at him like a tide. Ethan fired a shot. The crack of his Colt deafened the small cabin, but the bullet vanished in a mist before it reached her. Clara stepped closer. The cloth was never to be removed. That was the warning. Now the curse is yours. The floor buckled under his boots. The cabin stretched, the walls bending like shadows. The mirror yawned wider, becoming not a frame, but a doorway. Ethan struggled, clinging to the doorframe, but his strength failed as unseen hands, cold, skeletal, gripped his arms and dragged him toward the glass. His last sight was Clara's face, calm and sorrowful. "One day, someone else will come, and you will whisper as I did." The mirror swallowed him whole. Morning came. The storm had passed, and the prairie lay still. The trapper's cabin sagged in silence. The lantern burned out. On the table, the mirror sat once more beneath the rough brown cloth, waiting. And if a man or woman lingered too long nearby, they might hear it, a voice, low and desperate. "Remove the cloth?"